The 1977 Major League Baseball expansion resulted in the establishment of expansion franchises in Seattle and Toronto in the American League of Major League Baseball. The Seattle Mariners and Toronto Blue Jays began play in the 1977 Major League Baseball season, becoming the 25th and 26th teams in Major League Baseball. Seattle and Toronto were included in a list of potential expansion cities in a survey conducted by the American League in 1960. The others were Atlanta, Buffalo, Dallas-Fort Worth, Denver, Oakland, and San Diego, all of which received franchises eventually through expansion or relocation except Buffalo. In order to stock the roster of each team, a draft was held on November 5, 1976, in which each of the extant teams would make available to the expansion franchises some of the players on their major league and minor league rosters. Each team was allowed to protect 15 players on the major league roster, and an additional 3 players after each of the first and second round of the draft. The Seattle Mariners and Toronto Blue Jays each selected 30 players in the draft. The Seattle Mariners are an American professional baseball team based in Seattle. They compete in Major League Baseball as a member club of the American League West Division. The team joined the American League as an expansion team in 1977, playing their home games in the Kingdome. Since July 1999, the Mariners' home ballpark has been T-Mobile Park, located in the SoDo neighborhood of Seattle. The Mariners' name originates from the prominence of marine culture in the city of Seattle. They are nicknamed the M's, a title featured in their primary logo from 1987 to 1992. They adopted their current team colors navy blue, northwest green, and silver prior to the 1993 season, after having been royal blue and gold since the team's inception. Their mascot is the Mariner Moose. The organization did not field a winning team until 1991, and any real success eluded them until 1995 when they won their first division championship and defeated the New York Yankees in the ALDS, the game-winning hit in Game 5, in which Edgar Martinez drove home Ken Griffey Jr. to win the game in the 11th inning, clinched a series win for the Mariners, served as a powerful impetus to preserve baseball in Seattle, and has since become an iconic moment in team history. The Mariners won 116 games in 2001, which set the American League record for most wins in a single season and tied the 1906 Chicago Cubs for the Major League record for most wins in a single season. Through the end of the 2020 season, the franchise has finished with a losing record in 30 of 44 seasons. The Mariners are one of 6 Major League Baseball teams who have never won a World Series championship, and they are the only team to have never played in the World Series. They hold the longest playoff drought in all of the 4 major North American professional sports, having not qualified for the playoffs since their 116-win season in 2001. Before being awarded a team in Major League Baseball, Seattle had been a staple of the Pacific Coast League dating back to the late 19th century. The first attempt to land a Major League team failed when a bid by William Daley to move the Cleveland Indians to Seattle in 1965 fell apart. In late 1967, Daley, by then having sold the Indians, led a consortium to win the franchise in the 1969 expansion. That team became the Seattle Pilots. The Seattle Pilots, amidst a bevy of financial problems, were sold and relocated to Milwaukee for the 1970 season and became the Milwaukee Brewers. The Mariners were created as a result of a lawsuit. In 1970, in the aftermath of the Pilots' purchase and relocation to Milwaukee by future Commissioner of Baseball Bud Selig, the City of Seattle, King County, and the State of Washington sued the American League for breach of contract. Confident that Major League Baseball would return to Seattle within a few years, King County built a multi-purpose Kingdome, which became home to the NFL expansion Seattle Seahawks in 1976. The Pilots' lawsuit continued until 1976. At trial, the American League offered to give Seattle an expansion baseball franchise in return for dropping the suit, and details were ironed out over the next year. To keep the league with an even number of teams, a formal expansion proceeding was held, with the second team, the Blue Jays, being awarded to the City of Toronto. The new Seattle team, to begin play in 1977, was to be owned by entertainer Danny Kaye, along with Stanley Golub, Walter Schoenfeld, Lester Smith, James Stilwell, Jr., and James A. Walsh. The name Mariners was chosen by club officials in August 1976 from over 600 names submitted by 15,000 entrants in a Name the Team contest. The Mariners played their first game on April 6, 1977, to a sold-out crowd of 58,000 at the Kingdome, losing 7-0 to the California Angels. The first home run in team history was hit on April 10, 1977, by designated hitter Juan Bernhardt. That year, star pitcher Diego Segu, in his last major league season, became the only player to play for both the Pilots and the Mariners. The Mariners finished with a 64-98 record, echoing the record the 1969 Pilots once held. In 1979, Seattle hosted the 50th Major League Baseball All-Star Game. After the 1981 season, the Mariners were sold to California businessman and future U.S. Ambassador to Spain George R. Gross. Despite having stars such as Hall of Fame pitcher Gaylord Perry, 1984 American League Rookie of the Year Alvin Davis, two-time All-Star and three-time Gold Glove winner Harold Reynolds, three-time American League strikeout leader Mark Langston, and shortstop and team captain Spike Owen on their rosters, the Mariners teams of the late 1970s and the entirety of the 1980s were characterized by perennial non-achievement, gaining a reputation for poor performances, low attendance, and losing records. Moreover, the team's ownership again changed hands after the 1988 season, as R. Gross sold the club to a group headed by communications magnate Jeff Smulian. However, the 1989 rookie season of center fielder Ken Griffey, Jr., acquired with the first overall pick of the 1987 amateur draft, gave fans hope that a change of fortunes might be on the horizon. The Mariners finished with a losing record in 1990 to start off the decade. The Mariners did had their moments that year, like Randy Johnson's first no-hitter, and in one night, Ken Griffey Sr. and Ken Griffey Jr. hit back-to-back home runs. After yet another dismal performance in 1990, the Mariners managed their first winning season in 1991, finishing 83-79 under manager Jim LaFeber. Though it was the team's best season up to that point, it was only good enough for a fifth-place finish in the 7-team American League West, in which no team finished under 500, and LaFeber was fired after 91. The team hired Bill Plummer as LaFeber's replacement for the 92 season, but he too was let go after a 98 loss campaign in 92. Much of the reason for that was trading away pitchers Bill Swift, Mike Jackson and Dave Burba to the San Francisco Giants for outfielder Kevin Mitchell and pitcher Mike Remlinger. Bill Swift won the ERA title in 1992 and finished second in Cy Young voting in 1993. Mike Jackson had a solid career as a relief pitcher and Burba pitched well as both reliever and starter. While Kevin Mitchell had a solid year in 1992, he was traded the next season to Cincinnati for Norm Charlton, and Mike Remlinger didn't even play in a Mariner uniform. After several years of relocation threats by owner Jeff Smulian, in the middle of the 92 season, the Mariners were purchased by a group of Seattle area businessmen, led by Nintendo chairman Hiroshi Yamauchi. The purchase was initially opposed by baseball officials, who objected to a team being owned by a non-North American entity. Eventually, they allowed the sale, provided that the team's presidency and chairmanship remained in the hands of American partners. In 1993, the Mariners donned their current uniforms. During the 92-93 off-season, the Mariners hired manager Lou Piniella, who had led the Cincinnati Reds to victory in the 1990 World Series. Mariner fans embraced Piniella, and he managed the team from 1993 through 2002, winning 2 American League Manager of the Year awards along the way. For only the second time, the Mariners had a winning record, though only 2 games above 500. The Mariners' fortunes began to improve in '94. Beginning in the late 80s, the team had added a core of strong players built around center fielder Ken Griffey Jr., pitcher Randy Johnson, third baseman Edgar Martinez, and right fielder Jay Buhner. On July 19, 1994, 4 15-pound ceiling tiles fell from the Kingdome roof onto the field and into the stadium's seating bowl. The incident led to uncertainty over whether the Kingdome was fit for use as a major league stadium, and may well have ultimately been a factor leading to the construction of Safeco Field. Unable to play at the venue while repairs were being executed, the Major League Baseball Players Association rejected the idea of playing games at Cheney Stadium in Tacoma or BC Place in Vancouver, feeling that games should not be played in non-MLB venues. This forced the Mariners to play their next 20 games on the road over the span of 21 days. The long trip began miserably as the Mariners started off 2-8, but rebounded to win 9 of their next 10 games, leaving them just 2 games behind the division-leading Texas Rangers when a players' strike was called on August 12 that resulted in the cancellation of the rest of the season. At that point, no team in the AL West had reached 500, with the Rangers being 10 games below. Many players felt the time together on the road and the overcoming of the adversity faced that season fed directly into the success the team achieved in the '95 season. The extended road trip resulted in a peculiarity in which the first game in a series with the Boston Red Sox, which was supposed to be in Seattle, was rained out. If one still counts this as a home game, it marked the first and so far only home rainout in Mariners history. Safeco Field has a retractable roof, so games can either be played indoors or outdoors, always indoors when it is raining. Although pitchers Randy Johnson, Bill Risley, and Bobby Ayala combined for an opening day 3-hit shutout, the Mariners' '95 season started off on a bad note overall, as Griffey sustained a major early season injury. Despite this loss, the Mariners continue to play fairly well, guided by Piniella. In mid-August, however, the Mariners appeared to be out of contention, 13 games behind the first-place California Angels. In September, the ballot measure for a new stadium for the A's was shot down by King County voters. However, luck turned their way that month. The tide turned with a September winning streak marked by late-inning comeback wins, which led to their most known slogan, "Refuse to lose." Combined with an absolute collapse by the Angels, this opened the way for the Mariners to end up tied with the Angels for first place at the end of the regular season, forcing a one-game playoff. The playoff pitted Johnson against Angels ace Mark Langston, whom, incidentally, the Mariners had traded for Johnson in '89. Langston ended up on the seat of his pants at home plate, failing to tag out Luis Sojo, who came all the way around after clearing the bases with a ball that got by the Angels' first baseman, JT Snow, rattled around underneath California's bullpen bench, and resulted in a hurried and errant cut-off throw from Langston. The Mariners won the tiebreaker game 9-1 and clinched their first ever trip to the playoffs. The Mariners had won 25 of their last 36 games. The Mariners lost the first 2 games of the 1995 American League Division Series against the New York Yankees, but managed to win the next 2 at home and force a decisive Game 5. Down 5-4 in the bottom of the 11th inning, the most memorable moment in Mariners history took place. Edgar Martinez hit a game-winning double off Yankee ace Jack McDowell, scoring Joey Cora and Griffey to win the game 6-5 and advance to the American League Championship Series. The double, as Martinez's clutch hit has since been called by Mariners fans, is credited as being the moment that saved baseball in Seattle, by generating newly refreshed interest in the team and making a new, baseball-only stadium possible. Soon after, the Washington State Legislature approved funding for what eventually became Safeco Field, a retractable roof stadium, built near the Kingdome, which itself was demolished in 2000, with the Seahawks' new stadium, now known as Lumen Field, now occupying the same site. In 1996, the Mariners, led by Griffey, rookie shortstop Alex Rodriguez, and sluggers Jay Boomer and Edgar Martinez, won a Venteen record 8-5 games, but missed the playoffs. The offense set the all-time record for most home runs by a team in a season, but ultimately the Mariners' inconsistent pitching, exacerbated by a mid-season injury to Randy Johnson, doomed the team. The Mariners hit a major league record 264 home runs and won the division title again in '97, but were defeated in the 1997 American League Division Series 3-1 by the Baltimore Orioles. They were again hurt by a lack of pitching depth to complement the strong offense, which was led by Griffey, who won the MVP award, a first for both him and the Mariners. In '98 and '99, the Mariners had losing records due primarily to their lack of pitching depth. Randy Johnson was traded at the 98 July non-waiver trading deadline to the Houston Astros after GM Woody Woodard publicly stated he did not intend on offering Johnson, who was a free agent following the 98 season, a long-term contract. Johnson subsequently requested to be traded. He had been inconsistent during the first half of the season. Some fans and press thought he had been trying to force a trade through malaise. The trade that sent Johnson to the Astros turned out to be a major steal for the Mariners, as although Randy Johnson went 10-1 with 116 strikeouts down the stretch, the Astros were eliminated by the San Diego Padres in the NLDS, and Johnson signed with the Arizona Diamondbacks in the offseason, while the Mariners got future stars in pitcher Freddie Garcia and shortstop Carlos Gillen. Strong pitching from aces Jeff Fassero and Jamie Moyer was not enough to fully offset the loss, and the bullpen's struggles continued. Midway through the 99 season, the Mariners moved to Safeco Field. After the 99 season, Ken Griffey Jr. requested and attained a trade to the Cincinnati Reds, leaving Alex Rodriguez as the face of the franchise at the beginning of the high-expectation Safeco Field era, which was during the years 2000 through 2003. 2000 was a return to respectability for the Mariners. They finished half a game behind the Oakland Athletics in the AL West, as they played only 161 games. The tie-breaking rules had already awarded the division crown to Oakland, so the rained-out 162nd game was not made up, and the Mariners were declared wild-card winners. While Ken Griffey Jr. was no longer patrolling center or anchoring the middle of the batting order, his replacement, Mike Cameron, was noted for his solid hitting and exceptional glove work. He won 2 Gold Gloves with the team. Alex Rodriguez replaced Jr. as the face of the franchise in 2000. Edgar Martinez continued his steady hitting in the cleanup spot, putting up a career high in homers. Both finished in the top 6 in MVP voting. A key addition to the team occurred when the Mariners signed the one-time AL batting champion John Olaird, a Washington State University graduate and Seattle native, to play first base. Olaird had some of his best seasons in Seattle, and played a huge part in the team's success the following year. Jamie Moyer, Freddie Garcia, and Aaron Sell anchored what was easily the most successful rotation in Seattle since the departure of Randy Johnson. Closer Kazuhiro Sasaki, previously a star for the Japanese Yokohama Bay Stars, won the AL Rookie of the Year award. Stolen base king and former MVP Ricky Henderson was acquired mid-season and filled long-time need in left field and in the leadoff slot. The Mariners swept the Chicago White Sox in the ALDS, but lost to the New York Yankees in 6 games in the ALCS. The following off-season was one of the most significant in Mariners history, as Rod Arquez was up for free agency. Ultimately, Rod Arquez was lost to the Texas Rangers for what was then the richest contract ever in professional sports. However, the Mariners were able to weather the loss by adding Japanese superstar Ichiro Suzuki and slick fielding, power-hitting second base veteran Brett Boone. In 2001, the addition of Ichiro and a career season by Boone helped the Mariners to tie the record for most wins in the modern era. This was despite the loss of Rodriguez, who was greeted on his return to Safeco with monopoly money dropped by unusually irate Seattle fans, and on subsequent returns by incessant booing. The 2001 Mariners led the major leagues in winning percentage all season long, easily winning the American League West Division Championship, breaking the 98 Yankees American League single-season record of 114 wins, and matching the Major League Baseball record for single-season wins of 116 set by the Chicago Cubs in 1906. At the end of the season, Ichiro won the AL MVP, AL Rookie of the Year, and one of 3 outfield Gold Glove awards, becoming the first player since the 1975 Boston Red Sox's Fred Lynn to win all 3 in the same season. He has been the subject of several books, including one released in the summer of 2001 that consists solely of his Zen-like quotations. The Mariners also hosted the All-Star Game in July of that year, and had a league-leading and team record 8 All-Stars. Right field Ichiro Suzuki, DH Edgar Martinez, center field Mike Cameron, second base Brett Boone, first base John Olaird, and pitchers Freddie Garcia, Kazuhiro Sasaki, and Jeff Nelson. The Mariners pulled off a come-from-behind 3-2 series win over the Cleveland Indians in the Division Series to advance to the American League Championship Series to have a rematch with the New York Yankees, but succumbed to the Yankees for the second year in a row in the ALCS, 4-1. The team went 116-46 in the regular season, but just 4-6 in the postseason. The Mariners started the 2002 season hot. They were on pace to win over 100 games again well into the summer, but they missed out on the playoffs. This was widely attributed to their failure to find a substantial contributor at the trade deadline and hot streaks by the Anaheim Angels and Oakland Athletics in the later months of the season. Ultimately, the Angels won the World Series as the Mariners won 93 games, which was still the second best total in their history. At the end of the season, manager Lou Piniella left the Mariners to manage his hometown Tampa Bay Devil Rays, reportedly due to his anger with management. Piniella believed that management was more concerned with the bottom line than acquiring quality players. With the exception of the 98 and 99 seasons, the Mariners had been annual challengers for the AL West title from 95 through 2003. The 2004 season, however, saw the fall of the Mariners from contention. With an aging roster, the Mariners went into the All-Star break with a 9-game losing streak, and a 32-54 season record, 17 games behind the first-place Texas Rangers. After the All-Star break, unable to ignore the dreadful state of their team, the Mariners gave the team a complete overhaul, trading Freddie Garcia to the Chicago White Sox for Miguel Olivo, Jeremy Reed, and Mike Morse, and moving aging and struggling players away from center stage, most notably releasing Gold Glover and fan favorite John Olerud, and inserting over a dozen minor league call-ups into the 25-man roster. The season's end was enlivened by Ichiro breaking George Sisler's single-season record of 257 hits. Just days after the end of the season, the Mariners fired manager Bob Melvin. On October 20, 2004, the Mariners announced the signing of Mike Hargrove, who had led the Cleveland Indians past the Mariners in the 95 ALCS, as their new manager. In the off-season, the Mariners and Bob Ossie surprised fans and the local press by signing 2 premier free agents, third baseman Adrian Beltre and first baseman Richie Sexson, ending some accusations from fans that the organization was only willing to make piecemeal signings and trades. On November 26, 2004, the owner of the Mariners changed. Hiroshi Yamauchi sold his 54% stake to Nintendo of America. Despite several personnel changes and free agent signings after the 2004 season, the team stayed at the bottom of the divisional standing throughout the 2005 season and finished in last place, though they improved their record by 6 games compared to the previous year. The brightest spot of the season was the emergence of 19-year-old Venezuelan pitching prospect Felix Hernandez, who became the youngest major leaguer to debut since Jose Rizzo entered the league with the New York Yankees in '84. Sexson also played very well, hitting 39 home runs and 121 RBI. Stars Ichiro and Beltre, however, did not reach their high levels of offensive production from 2004, and second base Brett Boone was released before the All-Star break. Along with Hernandez, 2 rookie middle infielders became part of the Mariners' long-term plans. Cuban defector and shortstop Yuniesky Betancourt and Venezuelan second baseman and former top prospect Jose Alpez became the next season's starters. However, the Mariners' rotation beyond Hernandez and the aging Jamie Moyer was poor, and the Mariners suffered the embarrassment of having the most suspendees under MLB's new drug testing policy, notably pitcher Ryan Franklin and Mike Morse. During the 2005 and 6 off-season, Ichiro spoke out and criticized the team's attitude, pointing out its lack of leadership and manager Hargrove's failure to harness players. The Mariners began the 2005 and 6 off-season by signing star Japanese catcher Kenji Joyima to a 3-year deal and left-handed starter Jared Washburn, formerly of division rival Los Angeles, to 4-year deal. Designated hitter Carla Everett and outfielder Matt Lawton also joined the team, although both finished the season out of baseball. The Mariners entered the All-Star break 2.5 games out of first place in the AL West. Despite remaining in contention within the AL West through July, a disastrous 0-11 road trip in mid-August signaled the end of the Mariners' playoff hopes, leaving them in last place, where they finished the season. pitcher Jamie Moyer was traded to the Philadelphia Phillies for a pair of minor league prospects, and weeks later bench coach Ron Hassey and Ad. The 2007 season began with a sense of muted optimism. While the team had a busy off-season in terms of changes to the roster, fans questioned player transactions that moved young, potential-filled players Rafael Soriano, Chris Snelling, in favor of veterans who have suffered injuries in recent seasons, Jose Gallen, Jose Vidro, Horacio Ramírez, or who have achieved mediocre success in the past with other clubs, Miguel Batista, Jeff Weaver. These transactions followed Geo Howard Lincoln's remarks at the completion of the 2006 campaign that GM Bill Bavossi and manager Mike Hargrove were on his hot seat and needed to produce more wins in 2007. Further magnifying the need to win was outfielder Ichiro Suzuki's suggestion at the beginning of spring training that he may have an interest in testing free agency waters when his contract is completed at the end of the season if the Mariners continue to struggle on the field. After 2.5 seasons with the Mariners and while guiding the team to a 44-33 record in the 2007 season, Mike Hargrove unexpectedly announced before the July 1st game against the Toronto Blue Jays that the game was his last as the Mariners manager. Hargrove said that he could no longer provide the commitment from himself that he was expecting of his players and coaches. Bench coach John McLaren was announced as Hargrove's replacement. On July 13, Ichiro Suzuki signed a 5-year, $90 million contract with the Mariners that extended to 2012. With minor league prospect Adam Jones playing well and a fairly consistent offense and pitching staff, the 2007 Mariners were back in contention in the AL West and AL wildcard races. However, a 3-15 stretch late in the season effectively ended the Mariners' 2007 playoff hopes. The Mariners were mathematically eliminated from contention on September 24. One highlight during this stretch, however, was the home run that gave Ichiro Suzuki 200 hits for his 7th consecutive 200-hit season. Ichiro is only the 3rd player in MLB history with 7 consecutive 200-hit seasons, and the first to do it in his first 7 seasons. Heading into the 2008 season, the Mariners hoped to capitalize on their success by bolstering their roster to position themselves to once again challenge the Angels for the AL West Championship. They dramatically transformed their pitching staff, adding free agent Carlos Sylvia and trading a package of players led by George Sherrill and Adam Jones to the Baltimore Orioles on February 8 for Rick Bedard. Other additions included outfielder Brad Wilkerson and infielder Miguel Cairo, as well as a new coaching staff under McLaren featuring former MLB managers Jim Riggleman, Sam Peralozzo, Lee Elia, and pitching coach Mel Stottlemyre. Also added to the major league coaching staff was bullpen coach Norm Charlton, a member of the 95, 97, and 2001 AL West title teams, as well as Eddie Rodriguez, previously manager of the Mariners, AA minor league affiliate. Hitting coach Jeff Pentland remained as the only coach hired under Hargrove. Despite their off-season additions, the 2008 Mariners featured one of the league's worst offenses. In April, the club attempted to solve some of its offensive woes by designating Wilkerson and pinch hitter Greg Norton for assignment. The offensive struggles, in concert with defensive lapses and inconsistent pitching from both the bullpen and the starting rotation, led the team to last place by the end of April despite an opening day payroll of nearly $117 million. They had the worst record in team history. Hitting coach Pentland was fired on June 9 and was replaced by Lee Elia, who was previously the Mariners' hitting instructor from 93 to 97. Following a 1-5 homestand, general manager Bill Bavossi was dismissed on June 16 and replaced by Lee Pellicautas on an interim basis. Pellicautas had held various front office positions with the Mariners since 1980, most recently as vice president/assistant general manager. The purge continued on June 19, when John McLaren was dismissed from his position and replaced by bench coach Jim Riggleman. 39. Personnel moves of that sort were not limited to coaches and front office personnel in 2008, as Richie Sexson and Jose Vidro were released in July and August, respectively. On September 1, the Mariners were the first team in baseball mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. They finished the season with 101 losses, only one fewer than the MLB worst Washington Nationals. The 2008 Mariners became the first team in Major League history to have a payroll of 100 million or more while accumulating 100 or more losses. On October 22, 2008, the Mariners announced the hiring of Jack Zduriencyk, formerly scouting director of the Milwaukee Brewers, as their general manager. Weeks later, on November 18, the team named Oakland Athletics bench coach Don Wakamatsu as its new field manager. Wakamatsu and Zduriencyk hired an entirely new coaching staff for 2009, which included former World Series MVP John Wetteland as bullpen coach. The off-season also saw a litany of roster moves, headlined by a 12-player, three-team trade that included sending all-star closer J.J. Putz to the New York Mets and brought 5 players including prospect Mike Carp and outfielder Andy Vez from New York and outfielder Franklin Gutierrez from the Cleveland Indians to Seattle. Many of the moves, like a free agent signing of Mike Sweeney, were made in part with the hope of squelching the clubhouse infighting that plagued the Mariners in 2008. On February 18, the Mariners signed Ken Griffey, Jr. to a 1-year contract, returning him to the city where he played from '89 to '99 and was named a member of the All-Century team. Griffey was reissued his old uniform number, 24, which had not been issued to any on-field personnel since his February 2000 trade to Cincinnati. On April 15, Griffey hit his 400th home run in a Mariners uniform, becoming the only player to hit 400 home runs with one club, Seattle, and 200 with another, Cincinnati. On March 31, Ichiro was placed on the 15-day disabled list for the first time in his major league career, after being diagnosed with a bleeding ulcer. On April 15, he hit a grand slam in the first game upon his return from the DL. On April 16, Ichiro recorded his 3,086th hit in a combined career between Nippon Professional Baseball and Major League Baseball, breaking the record among Japanese-born professional players previously held by Isao Hiramoto, who attended the game in Seattle. On September 16, Ichiro hit his 200th hit for the 9th consecutive season, eclipsing the record held by Willie Keeler. On October 4, the final game of the year, Felix Hernandez continued his Cy Young candidacy and won his 19th game, the 85th for the Mariners. Mariners legend Ken Griffey, Jr. hit a single in the 8th inning and was lifted for pinch runner Michael Saunders to a long-standing ovation in what was then thought to be the final at-bat of his Hall of Fame career. The Mariners became the 13th team in MLB history to have a winning season after losing 100-plus games the previous season. After the final out, fans saluted the much-improved Mariners, having won 24 more games than the year before. The team took a victory lap around the park in return, which ended with the team carrying Griffey and eventually Ichiro on their shoulders before leaving the field. Among their 85 victories, an MLB season-high 35 were one-run triumphs, as well as 13 walk-off wins. On November 11, 2009, Griffey's return to the Mariners for the 2010 campaign was announced, with a similar contract to that of 2009. He looked to make $2 million with an additional $3 million in incentives. The Mariners showed that they wanted to contend in the AL West by signing Chone Figgins to a 4-year, $36 million contract, and by trading prospects to the Philadelphia Phillies for former Cy Young Award winner Cliff Lee. Seattle continued to be aggressive during the 2009 and 10 off-season, trading pitcher Carlos Sylvia and cash to the Chicago Cubs for outfielder Milton Bradley. On June 2, 2010, Ken Griffey Jr. announced his retirement after 22 MLB seasons. Griffey ended his career with 630 home runs, 5th highest in MLB history, 10 Gold Gloves, and 1 Most Valuable Player award. On August 10, 2010, the Mariners fired field manager Don Wakamatsu along with bench coach Ty Van Berkeley, pitching coach Rick Adair and performance coach Steve Hecht. Aaron Brown, the manager of the AAA affiliate Tacoma Rainiers, took over as interim field manager. Roger Hansen, the former minor league catching coordinator, was promoted to bench coach. Carl Willis, the former minor league pitching coordinator, was promoted to pitching coach. On October 19, 2010, the Mariners hired former Cleveland Indians manager Eric Wedge as their new manager. Carl Willis was retained as pitching coach. This came after a 6-1-101 season where many experts had predicted a first or second place finish in their division. This tied the record for worst season with the 2018. On December 6, 2013, the Seattle Mariners came to an agreement with former Yankee superstar second baseman Robinson Cano. The contract was to last for 10 years at approximately $240 million, making Cano the third highest paid baseball player in history, trailing Alex Rodriguez, 10-year, $275 million deal in 2008, and tied with Albert Pujols, 10-year, $240 million deal in 2012. In 2014, the Mariners had their first winning season since 2009, and stayed in playoff contention until the final game of the season, when the Oakland Athletics beat the Texas Rangers to clinch the second wild-card spot in the American League. Felix Hernandez broke a major league record by having 16 straight games with at least 7 innings pitched and giving up 2 or less earned runs. Hernandez also came in second in American League Cy Young Award voting, with Corey Kluber of the Cleveland Indians edging Felix by 10 voting points. Kyle Seager won the first Gold Glove of his career at third base. In 2016, Nintendo of America sold most of its franchise shares to First Avenue Entertainment, led by previous minority owner John W. Stanton. In 2017, the Mariners were projected to claim the second wild card, or even vie for the AL West Championship. However, injuries crippled the starting rotation, bullpen, and lineup. The Mariners used the record-tying 40 different pitchers, and 17 different pitchers started games. Drew Smyly, acquired from the Tampa Bay Rays in exchange for Alex Smith, Ryan Yarbrough, and Carlos Vargas, underwent Tommy John surgery, and did not pitch a single game for the Mariners before signing with the Cubs in December. This was the first of many highly unfortunate injuries that befell the Mariners roster. Manager Scott Survey described Smyly's injury as a soggy elbow, leading the Mariners fanbase to sarcastically bemoan SOG as an injury-causing curse deriving from the humidity of the Pacific Northwest. The Toronto Blue Jays are a Canadian professional baseball team based in Toronto, Ontario. The Blue Jays compete in Major League Baseball as a member club of the American League East Division. The team ordinarily plays its home games at Rogers Center, but used Solon Field in Buffalo, New York, as its home for the 2020 season due to border restrictions brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic. The name Blue Jays originates from the bird of the same name, and blue is also the traditional color of Toronto's collegiate and professional sports teams, including the Maple Leafs in hockey and the Argonauts, the Canadian football team. Out of the over 4,000 suggestions, 154 people selected the name Blue Jays. In addition, the team was originally owned by the Labatt Brewing Company, makers of the popular beer Labatt's Blue. Colloquially nicknamed the Jays, the team's official colors are royal blue, navy blue, red, and white. An expansion franchise, the club was founded in Toronto in 1977. Originally based at Exhibition Stadium, the team began playing its home games at SkyDome upon its opening in 1989. Since 2000, the Blue Jays have been owned by Rogers Communications, and in 2004, SkyDome was purchased by that company, which renamed it Rogers Center. They are the second MLB franchise to be based outside the United States, and currently the only team based outside the US, after the first Canadian franchise, the Montreal Expos, became the Washington Nationals in 2005. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, the Blue Jays went through struggles typical of an expansion team, frequently finishing in last place in its division. In 1983, the team had its first winning season, and 2 years later, they became division champions. From 1985 to 1993, they were an AL East powerhouse, winning 5 division championships in 9 seasons, including 3 consecutive from 1991 through 1993. During that run, the team also became back-to-back World Series champions in 1992 and 1993, led by a core group of award-winning all-star players, including Hall of Famer Roberto Alomar, Joe Carter, John Olerud, and Devin White. The Blue Jays became the first and, to date, only team outside the US to appear in and win the World Series, and the fastest AL expansion team to do so, winning in its 16th year. As of 2019, they are one of only two MLB franchises that are undefeated through multiple World Series appearances, along with the National League's Miami Marlins. After 1993, the Blue Jays failed to qualify for the playoffs for 21 consecutive seasons, until clinching a playoff berth and division championship in 2015. The team clinched a second consecutive playoff berth in 2016, after securing an AL wildcard position. In both years, the Jays beat the Texas Rangers in the AL Division Series, but lost the AL Championship Series. The Blue Jays and the Atlanta Braves are the only two MLB teams under corporate ownership. The Blue Jays are also the only American League team to be under such ownership. In January 1976, San Francisco Giants owner Horace Stoneham agreed to sell the team for $13 million to a Toronto group which was led by Don McDougall and consisted of Labatt Breweries of Canada, Vulcan assets owned by the Globe and Mail chairman and president Howard Webster, and Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce. The team was to have begun play in the 1976 season at Exhibition Stadium, and would have been called the Toronto Giants. However, the plan to move the Giants was quashed by a U.S. court. Following the court ruling, Bob Lurie purchased the Giants and kept them in San Francisco. The city of Toronto had renovated Exhibition Stadium to accommodate Major League Baseball in anticipation of the Giants' relocation there, and continued to push for an MLB franchise. MLB awarded Toronto an expansion franchise in 1976, along with Seattle, Washington. A consortium composed of Labatt Breweries, Webster and CIBC purchased the rights for the franchise from MLB for $7 million. However, even after the franchises were awarded, the future of baseball in Toronto appeared uncertain. U.S. President Gerald Ford had attempted to put pressure on MLB to give Washington, D.C. an expansion franchise instead of Toronto. Washington had been without Major League Baseball since the Senators were moved to Arlington, Texas to become the Texas Rangers following the 1972 season. Following this development, there was brief speculation by Metro Toronto chairman Paul Godfrey, among others, that Washington would be awarded Toronto's American League franchise and Toronto would instead be awarded a National League Expansion franchise. However, Ford's attempts did not amount to anything and Toronto was allowed to keep its American League Expansion franchise. The Blue Jays were approved as part of the 1977 Major League Baseball expansion discussions. The team was represented by legal counsel Ard Solway and Gord Kirk. Kirk prepared the original documents which led to the foundation of the team in 1976. The franchise's first employee was Paul Beeston, who began work in 1976 as the Vice President of Business Operations. Beeston later served as President of the Blue Jays and MLB. He eventually returned to the Blue Jays as President in 2008, before retiring at the conclusion of the 2015 season. Before the team's inaugural season in 1977, Peter Bovasi was chosen to be the president and general manager while Pat Gillick was named assistant general manager. The name Blue Jays came about in 1976, when the team held a Name the Team contest, which involved more than 4,000 suggestions. 154 people suggested the name Blue Jays, and Dr. William Mills, a periodontist from Etobicoke, was selected from a draw as the grand winner. Mills stated that it was traditional for a Toronto-based sports team to have the color blue as its primary color, and following the leads of the Baltimore Orioles and St. Louis Cardinals that the team be named after a bird. Another theory was that Blue Jays was chosen by majority owner Labatt Breweries, an apparent tie-in with its feature brand, Labatt Blue. However, it is very likely that the team would have used blue as one of its colors in any event. Blue has been the primary color for many of Toronto's top-level teams, the Toronto Raptors and Toronto FC being the few exceptions, as theirs are red since the Toronto Argonauts adopted it in 1873. The Blue Jays nickname was previously used, albeit unofficially, by the Philadelphia Phillies during the 1940s. The Blue Jays played their first game on April 7, 1977, against the Chicago White Sox before a home crowd of 44,000. The game is now perhaps best remembered for the minor snowstorm which began just before the game started. Toronto won the snowy affair 9-5, led by Doug Ault's 2 home runs. That win would be one of only 54 of the 1977 season, as the Blue Jays finished last in the American League East, with a record of 54 and 107. After the season, assistant general manager Pat Gillick succeeded Peter Bavossi as general manager of the team, a position he would hold until 1994. In 1978, the team improved their record by 5 games, but remained last, with a record of 59 and 102. In 1979, after a 53 and 109 last place finish, shortstop Alfredo Griffin was named American League Co-Rookie of the Year. In addition, the Blue Jays' first mascot, B.J. Birdie, made its debut in 1979. In 1980, Bobby Matic became manager, succeeding Roy Hartsfield, the Blue Jays' original manager. In Matic's first season as manager, although they remained at the bottom, Toronto almost reached the 70-win mark, finishing with a record of 67 and 95, a 14-win improvement on 1979. Jim Clancy led with 13 wins and John Mayberry became the first Jay to hit 30 home runs in the season. In the strike-divided season of 1981, the Blue Jays finished in last place in the AL East in both halves of the season. They were a dismal 16 and 42 in the first half, but improved dramatically, finishing the 48-game second half at 21 and 27, for a combined record of 37 and 69. Under new manager Bobby Cox, Toronto's first solid season came in 1982 as they finished 78 and 84. Their pitching staff was led by starters Dave Stieb, Jim Clancy, and Luis Leal, and the outfield featured the young Lloyd Moseby and Jesse Barfield. 82 was also the Blue Jays' first season outside the bottom, as they finished 6th in the East out of 7 teams. In 83, the Blue Jays compiled their first winning record, 89 and 73, finishing in 4th place, 9 games behind the eventual World Series champions, the Baltimore Orioles. First baseman Willie Upshaw became the first Blue Jay to have at least 100 RBIs in the season. The Blue Jays' progress continued in 84, finishing with the same 89 and 73 record, but this time in a distant 2nd place behind another World Series champion, the Detroit Tigers. After 84, Alfredo Griffin went to the Oakland Athletics, thus giving a permanent spot to young Dominican shortstop Tony Fernandez, who would become a fan favorite for many years. In 1985, Toronto won its first championship of any sort, the first of their 6 American League East Division titles. The Blue Jays featured strong pitching and a balanced offense. Tony Fernandez excelled in his first full season, and veteran pitcher Doyle Alexander led the team with 17 wins, including a division-clinching complete game win. Their mid-season call-up of relief pitcher Tom Henk also proved to be important. They finished 99 and 62, the franchise record for most wins, 2 games in front of the New York Yankees. The Blue Jays faced the Kansas City Royals in the American League Championship Series, and took a 3-1 lead. However, Kansas City won 3 consecutive games to win the series 4-3, on the way to their first World Series championship. The Blue Jays' successful season was dubbed the Drive of 85. After the playoffs, Cox, the AL Manager of the Year, suddenly left the Blue Jays to become general manager of the Atlanta Braves, the team he previously managed. With Jimmy Williams taking over for Cox as manager, the Blue Jays could not duplicate their success in 86, sliding to a 4th place tie at 86 and 76. Jesse Barfield and George Bell led the way with 40 and 31 home runs, respectively, while Jim Clancy, Mark Eichorn, and Jimmy Key tied for the team wins led with 14 each. In 87, the Blue Jays held a 3.5-game lead with a week to go in the season, then lost their last 7 in a row to finish 2 games back of the Detroit Tigers, getting swept on the last weekend by the Tigers. The Blue Jays finished with a 96 and 66 record, second best in the major leagues, but to no avail. However, George Bell was named the AL's most valuable player, the first Blue Jay to earn that honor. In 88, however, Toronto could not duplicate the successes of the previous season. They tied the Milwaukee Brewers for 3rd in the division at 87 and 75, only 2 games behind the division champion Boston Red Sox. Still, the season had numerous highlights. First baseman Fred McGriff hit 34 home runs, and Dave Stieb had back-to-back starts in which he lost a no-hitter with 2 out and 2 strikes in the 9th inning. In '89, the Blue Jays' new retractable roofed home, SkyDome, opened mid-season. It also marked the beginning of an extremely successful 5-year period for the team. In May, management fired manager Jamie Williams and replaced him with Cito SkyDome, the team's hitting instructor. The club had a dismal 12-24 record at the time of the firing, but went 77-49 under Gaston to win the AL East title by 2 games, with an 89-73 record. On May 28, George Bell's walk-off home run, off of Chicago White Sox closer Bobby Thigpen, marked the end of the exhibition stadium era. The first game at the new stadium took place on June 5 against the Milwaukee Brewers. The Jays lost 5-3. In the 1989 ALCS, Rickey Henderson led the World Series champion Oakland Athletics to a 4-1 series win. In 1990, the Blue Jays again had a strong season, but finished in second place, 2 games behind the Boston Red Sox. Dave Stieb pitched his only no-hitter, beating the Cleveland Indians 3-0 in front of a less-than-capacity crowd at Cleveland Municipal Stadium. As of 2018, it remains the only no-hitter ever pitched by a Blue Jay. During the off-season, the Blue Jays made one of the 2 biggest trades in franchise history, sending all-star shortstop Tony Fernandez and first baseman Fred McGriff to the San Diego Padres in exchange for outfielder Joe Carter and second baseman Roberto Alomar. The Jays also obtained center fielder Devin White from the California Angels. These deals, particularly the trade with San Diego, were instrumental in the team's future success. Carter, Alomar and White would prove to be extremely effective additions, as the Blue Jays again won the division in '91, as Carter drove in Alomar for the division-winning run. Once again, however, they fell short in the postseason, losing to the Minnesota Twins, who were on the way to their second World Series victory in 5 seasons. In the ALCS in '91, the Blue Jays became the first major league club ever to draw over 4 million fans in one. After the '91 season had ended, the Blue Jays acquired pitcher Jack Morris, who had led the Minnesota Twins to victory in the World Series by pitching a 10-inning complete game shutout in Game 7 and had been named the World Series MVP to add veteran leadership to their explosive offense. Toronto signed Dave Winfield to be the team's designated hitter. The 1992 regular season went well, as the Jays clinched their second straight AL East crown with a final record of 96-66, 4 games ahead of the Milwaukee Brewers. They also went the entire season without being swept in any series, becoming the first team in 49 years to accomplish the feat. The Blue Jays met the Oakland Athletics, who had the same record as the Jays, and won the AL West by 6 games over the defending champion Twins in the ALCS, winning 4 games to 2. The pivotal game of the series was Game 4, considered by many to be one of the most important games in Blue Jays history. The Blue Jays rallied back from a 6-1 deficit after 7 innings, capped off by Roberto Alomar's huge game-tying 2-run homer off his closer Dennis Eckersley in the top of the 9th. This paved the way for a 7-6 victory in 11 innings, a 3-1 lead in the series and an eventual 4-2 ALCS series win. The Blue Jays then faced the Atlanta Braves in the World Series. The Braves returned after being beaten by the Twins the previous year. The pivotal game in this series turned out to be Game 2, in which reserve player Ed Sprague hit a 9th-inning 2-run home run off Braves closer Jeff Reardon to give the Blue Jays a 5-4 lead, which would hold up. After winning Game 3 thanks to Candy Maldonado's 9th-inning RBI hit and Game 4 due to Jimmy Key's superb 7 1/3-inning pitching effort in which he retired 15 straight batters, the Jays could not win the series on home turf as the Braves struck back with a 7-2 win in Game 5. Game 6 in Atlanta, with the Blue Jays leading 3-2, was a very close game. Toronto was 1 strike away from winning in the bottom of the 9th inning, 2-1, but Otis Nixon singled in the tying run off the Blue Jays closer Tom Hank. It was the first run the Toronto bullpen had given up in the series. The game was decided in the 11th inning, when Dave Winfield doubled down the left field line, driving in 2 runs. The Braves would again come within 1 run in the bottom of the 11th, but Jays reliever Mike Timlin fielded Otis Nixon's bunt, throwing to Joe Carter at first base for the final out. The Blue Jays became the first team based outside of the United States to win the World Series. Pat Borders, the Jays' catcher, was the unlikely player who was named MVP after hitting .450 with 1 home run in the World Series. Oddly, Morris was acquired in large part for his reputation as a clutch postseason pitcher, but he went 0 for 3 in the playoffs. Morris, however, pitched well in the regular season, becoming the Blue Jays' first 20-game winner, with a record of 21-6 and an ERA of 4. After the 1992 season, the Blue Jays let World Series hero Dave Winfield and longtime closer Tom Hank go, but signed 2 key free agents. Designated hitter Paul Molitor from the Milwaukee Brewers and perennial playoff success Dave Stewart from the Oakland Athletics. In '93, the Blue Jays had 7 All-Stars. Outfielders Devin White and Joe Carter, infielders John Olerud and Roberto Alomar, designated hitter Molitor, plus starting pitcher Pat Hentgen, and closer Dwayne Ward. In August, the Jays acquired former nemesis Ricky Henderson from the Athletics. The Blue Jays cruised to a 95-67 record, 7 games ahead of the New York Yankees, winning their 3rd straight division title. The Jays beat the Chicago White Sox 4-2 in the ALCS, and then the Philadelphia Phillies 4-2 for their 2nd straight World Series victory. The World Series featured several exciting games, including Game 4, played under a slight rain, in which the Blue Jays came back from a 14-9 deficit to win 15-14 and take a 3-1 lead in the series. It remains the highest scoring game in World Series history. Game 6 in Toronto saw the Blue Jays lead 5-1, but gave up 5 runs in the 7th inning to trail 6-5. In the bottom of the 9th inning, Joe Carter hit a 1-out, 3-run walk-off home run to clinch the series off of Phillies closer Mitch Williams. Only the 2nd World Series winning walk-off home run in the history of Major League Baseball following Bill Mazeroski's in Game 7 in 1960. Carter's hit differed from the first in that Toronto, while not facing elimination, was trailing in the bottom of the 9th. The home run is also memorable for late Blue Jays broadcaster Tom Cheek's call. Expectations were high for the Blue Jays for the '94 season, following back-to-back championships, but they slumped to a 55-60 record and a 3rd place finish 16 games back of the New York Yankees before the players' strike. It was their first losing season since '82. Joe Carter, Paul Molitor and John Olerud enjoyed good years at the plate, but the pitching fell off. Juan Guzman slumped considerably from his first 3 years, finishing '94 at 12-11. 3 young players, Alex Gonzalez, Carlos Delgado and Sean Green, did show much promise for the future. At the time of the strike, their fellow Canadian cousins, the Montreal Expos, had the best record in the majors, leading some to consider the possibility of the Canadian three-peat in 1994. On October 31, '94, Gillick, the longtime Blue Jays general manager, resigned and handed the reins of the team to assistant general manager and Toronto native Gord Ash, who would lead the team in its most tumultuous era yet. On September 1, 2000, Rogers Communications Inc. purchased 80% of the baseball club for $160 million, with Interbrew maintaining a 20% interest and the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce relinquishing its 10% share. Rogers eventually acquired the 20% owned by Interbrew and now has full ownership of the team. The 2001 season marked the 25th anniversary of the franchise's inception. But Martinez, a former catcher and broadcast announcer for the Blue Jays, took over as manager before the season began. The Blue Jays had a disappointing season, as the team fell back under 500, finishing at 80-82, with mediocre pitching and hitting. Delgado led the team again with 39 home runs and 102 RBI. After the 2001 season ended, the Blue Jays fired Gord Ash, ending a 7-year tenure as general manager. J.P. Ricciardi, then Director of Player Development under Oakland Athletics General Manager Billy Beane, was named the Blue Jays General Manager and was expected to slash the payroll immediately to stem the tide of red ink. During the off-season, the team traded or let go several popular players, including Alex Gonzalez, Paul Contrell, Brad Fulmer and closer Billy Koch, to let talented youngsters such as Eric Hinsk and Felipe Lopez get a chance to develop into major leaguers. During the off-season, the Jays signed Toronto-born catcher Russell Martin through free agency. The Jays acquired Marco Estrada, Devin Travis, All-Star third baseman Josh Donaldson, and Michael Saunders in trades. The Jays claimed Justin Smoke, Andy Dirks, and Chris Colabello off waivers. However, Dirks, along with John Mayberry Jr., were eventually non-tendered. The Jays later signed Dirks to a minor league contract. Melky Cabrera and Brandon Morrow left through free agency, and Juan Francisco was claimed off waivers by the Boston Red Sox. The Jays later traded Jose Reyes and pitching prospects Miguel Castro, Jeff Hoffman, and Jesus Tinoco to the Colorado Rockies for all-star shortstop Troy Tulowitzki and reliever Latroy Hawkins. 2 days later, they acquired all-star pitcher David Price from the Detroit Tigers in exchange for pitching prospects Daniel Norris, Matt Boyd, and Jairo Labort. The Jays had 2 11-game winning streaks during this season. On September 25, the Blue Jays clinched a playoff berth, ending the longest active playoff drought in North American professional sports. They subsequently claimed the AL East Division title on September 30th, after defeating the Baltimore Orioles 15-2 in the first game of a doubleheader. The Blue Jays faced the Texas Rangers in the ALDS after losing back-to-back home games. They won the next 3 games in a row to take the 5-game series, advancing to the ALCS. A 3-game comeback series victory had not been accomplished since 2012 by the San Francisco Giants. During Game 5 of the series in Toronto, Blue Jays right fielder Jose Bautista executed what Andrew Kay of the New York Times described as possibly the most ostentatious bat flip in MLB history, after hitting a go-ahead 3-run home run off Rangers relief pitcher Sam Dyson. Bautista wrote an article about the bat flip published in November 2015 in the Players Tribune. The Blue Jays then faced the Kansas City Royals in the ALCS, losing the series 4-2 in Kansas City. The Royals would eventually win the World Series. After the playoffs, Donaldson was named AL MVP, becoming the first Blue Jay to win the award since George Bell in 1987. Upon the expiration of Paul Beeston's contract, Mark Shapiro replaced him as president of the Blue Jays. Alex Anthopoulos resigned 2 months after the hiring of Shapiro. Ross Atkins subsequently took his place. During the off-season, David Price left the Blue Jays through free agency, signing with the Boston Red Sox, while the Blue Jays signed J.A. Happ. On March 4, 2016, infielder Masaris Charis announced his retirement from baseball. A few weeks later, Brad Penny and Rafael Soriano, both veterans under minor league contract with the Blue Jays, retired from baseball as well. On May 15, 2016, the Blue Jays and the Texas Rangers brawled against each other in Arlington, Texas. The brawl happened when Matt Bush threw a pitch at Jose Bautista. Then Bautista made an illegal slide, and Rondodor punched Bautista. Bautista was later suspended for 1 game. On May 31, 2016, the Blue Jays traded for Jason Grilli from the Atlanta Braves. Before the non-waiver trade deadline at 4 p.m. on August 1, the Blue Jays traded for Joaquin Benoit, Melvin Upton Jr., Scott Feldman, and Francisco Liriano. On August 25, the Blue Jays reacquired popular backup catcher Dioner Navarro in a trade with the Chicago White Sox. This was done before the August 31st trade deadline, making Navarro eligible to be on the postseason roster. On October 2, the Blue Jays clinched their first wild-card berth with a Detroit Tigers loss to the Atlanta Braves. On October 4, the Blue Jays defeated the Baltimore Orioles in the American League wild-card game in extra innings, via a walk-off 3-run home run by Edwin Encarnacion in the bottom of the 11th inning. On October 9, the Blue Jays completed a sweep of the Texas Rangers in the American League Division Series to advance to the American League Championship Series for the 2nd consecutive year. On October 19, the Blue Jays were eliminated from World Series contention with a 3-0 loss to the Cleveland Indians in Game 5 of the American League Championship Series. The 2020 Toronto Blue Jays season was the 44th season of the Toronto Blue Jays franchise. On March 12, MLB announced that because of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic in Toronto, the start of the regular season would be delayed by at least 2 weeks, in addition to the remainder of spring training being cancelled. 4 days later, it was announced that the start of the season would be pushed back indefinitely due to the recommendation made by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to restrict events of more than 50 people for 8 weeks. On June 23, Commissioner Rob Manfred unilaterally implemented a 60-game season. Players were to report to training camps on July 1 in order to resume spring training and prepare for a July 23 or 24 opening day. The team was forced to play their home games in the home of their AAA affiliate in Buffalo, New York. Due to the pandemic and the shortened season, Major League Baseball instituted certain rule changes which included the use of the universal designated hitter, a runner on second base to start extra innings, and a revised schedule. On July 30th, the league and the union agreed that all remaining doubleheaders on the season would be 7 innings. On September 24th, the Blue Jays clinched a playoff berth for the first time since 2016, and on the next day they clinched their first winning season since 2016 as well. As the 8th seed in the expanded playoff format, they faced the top-seeded Tampa Bay Rays in one of 4 2020 American League Wild Card Series where they were swept 2-0 in the best-of-3 series.